By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
Welcome to another episode of Timmy Talks, the channel where we talk old school magic. And today we're going to look at a first round match of the Enemy Colors tournament. And this match is played between Beastie Boss and Marco. And both players are playing a red-blue deck. And maybe it's good to first kind of explain what the Enemy Colors tournament is. Now, every couple of months or so, I organize an online tournament for the patrons and channel members to thank them for their support. And we always think of like something cool to do. In this case, we decided to organize a tournament that was all about enemy colors. So what you need to do is for this tournament, you need to play with two colors. So you can only play with two colors and they have to be enemy colors of each other. Now, if you turn around your magic card, at the back of your magic card, you can see the 5 colors of magic, right? White, blue, black, red, and green. Now, let's focus on the color white for a moment. So if we look at the color white, we can see that the two colors that are directly next to white are green and blue. These are the allied colors. They're the friends of white. But the colors furthest away are the enemies of white. So that's red and black. So in this tournament, you want to make a 2-color deck of enemy colors. So if you choose to play with white, you can combine it with either red or with black. Because remember, you're only allowed to play with 2 colors. Now, to make sure that the colors are equally balanced in the deck, you need to have the same amount of colored cards of each color in your deck. Now, you're also allowed to play with artifacts, but all the artifacts are restricted. So, in other words, I tried to do a lot in this tournament to kind of make sure that all players would make a balanced deck that's dominated by the 2 colors of their choice. Now, if you want to know more about the rules, I don't know if you do, but if you want to know more about the rules, check the description of the video because it has all the rules in them. And in that same description, you can also find a link to the tournament website, okay? And now before I start with the deck text, first a message from our sponsor, 3for1 Trading. 3for1 Trading is one of Europe's leading Magic the Gathering retailers. Their online shop has a fantastic selection of high-end Magic cards, especially for vintage, legacy, and yes, also old school Magic players. But 3for1 Trading does more. They're now also buying all Magic the Gathering singles and entire collections, big and small. They're one of the top trading card game traders in Europe, buying way over 1 million Magic cards a year, and they are more than happy to make you an offer for your cards today. So, if you have any cards for sale, 3for1 Trading is the place to go. Visit 3for1.gg/selltimmy to get your offer. And we are back and ready to dive into the deck text. I'm going to start with the player on the left, that is Beastie Boss. Let's take a look at his deck. And here we see the red and blue deck of Beastie Boss. And as you can see, it's really a counter burn deck, right? A traditional counter burn deck. And I guess the biggest difference is here, because we're playing in the Enemy Colors tournament, you need to have an equal amount of red cards versus blue cards. And even when you take cards from your sideboard into your main deck, you always have to have an even amount of blue cards versus red cards. And that's what we see here in the deck photo as well, right? 7 red cards in the sideboard, 7 blue cards in the sideboard, and an Ankh of Mishra in the middle. And then also in the deck photo, lands are in the middle, and on the left and the right side, you see the left side the red cards, the right side the blue cards. And like I said, this is really your standard counter burn deck. Counter burn, of course, is really good because you've got tons of burn. 4 chains, 4 lightning bolts, 4 psionic blasts. I mean, that alone is enough to kill your opponent. In here, we also see a Goblin Grenade that can deal another 5 points of damage. And then, of course, there's also the counter part of the deck, the counter spells, a full playset of counter spells, and a single mana drain, so really strong. And what's also really good about counter burn is the creatures, you know. You want to have cheap creatures, you want to play them out early, turn them sideways, deal a little bit of combat damage, and do the rest with your direct damage. So we see here Goblin Grenades, Goblin Balloon Brigades, and Goblins of the Flark and the Flying Man. Those are 6 1-drops. So with this deck, you will probably always have a 1/1 creature on turn 1. Then in turn 2, you only have 2 Ironclaw Orcs in this build. A lot of players would maybe go for 4 Ironclaw Orcs and, for example, take 2 1-drops away. But remember, of course, when you're building, you have that restriction where you need to have the same amount of red cards and blue cards. One of the things that Beastie Boss could have done, I guess, is take out the Stone Rains, put in 2 more Ironclaw Orcs. But then again, I like Stone Rain because there are so many good lands in old school Magic, and it's just good to have a tool to get rid of them. So I understand the inclusion of 2 Stone Rains, and that's probably better in a lot of cases than having 2 more Ironclaw Orcs. And then, of course, at the top end, talking about the creatures still, we have the Surrender Befried, the 3/4 flyer, the powerhouse of course. And yeah, it's just really, really good. And then we go into the sideboard. Of course, we have a red elemental blast, our blue elemental blast. We also have some more burn in the form of 2 fireballs and 2 detonates and an earthquake. And then we also have some control magics. And control magic can also be a key card against the right opponent. So this is the deck of Beastie Bus. I have to say, Bus, it's looking pretty strong. Now let's take a look at the deck of your opponent. And here we see the deck photo of Marco. Well, actually not the deck photo, just a few cards that he has in his deck. Unfortunately, I don't have a deck photo, but I did have a little bit of a sneak peek, and I can tell you he's playing blue and red, and he's not playing Counterburn. It looks like Counterburn. Obviously, you have a lot of the same cards, like Psionic Blast, for instance, but he's going a little bit more on, the heavy creatures. So, for example, he's playing Shivan Dragon. Of course, he's also playing Serendip. He also included a Mana Vault in his deck and a Copy Artifact, so maybe he's just hoping to copy his Mana Vault and to maybe play a big X spell. So you could say his deck is a bit more mid-range, where the counter burn deck is a bit more aggro and quick. So that's really going to be basically the match, right, that I see happening here between Bus and Marco. Well, Bus will try to just hurt Marco every single turn. Marco will try to kind of stabilize and win the game in the mid-game and the late game. Obviously, you could also have a scenario where, Marco draws into a Soul Ring and has a turn to Serendip. Then, of course, he will be playing aggressively. It's not that his deck cannot play aggressively, but if you compare the two decks together, Marco's deck is slightly slower than Bus's deck. And I also think that, of course, in this matchup, what's going to be really decisive is after sideboarding, because after sideboarding, both players will have access to blue Elemental Blast and red Elemental Blast. And, I could see the blasts being decisive here in this match. So maybe, if you look at it from that way, maybe game 1 is going to be very important, because if you win game 1, after that, the blasts are coming in and it's anybody's game. So if you then already have won a game, you really have a big advantage to eventually win the match as well. But yeah, this is part of the deck of Marco. Sorry that I don't have the deck photo. We looked at the deck of Beastie Bus, so that means we are ready. Let's go to the match here in the Enemy Colors tournament. Game number 1, here we go. So this is game number 1 of the Enemy Colors tournament. And Marco here on the play, starting with a Mana Vault. Both players are playing with a red and blue deck. And they have slightly different strategies, where Marco seems to be going for some bigger creatures, bigger flyers. Bus is really playing that traditional counter burn deck. He's starting with a Mishra's Factory and a pass. There we see a City of Brass. So I wonder if Marco's going to cast something. He's going to tap the Vault. There it is, Serendip Efreet turn 2. So Serendip Efreet, of course, a 3/4 flyer, and it deals 1 damage during your upkeep. This is the revised version. And does he want to do something else? I don't think there is a 2-drop in his deck. Don't believe he plays with Ironclaw Orcs. Bus does, by the way, playing with 2 Ironclaw Orcs. Let's see what he can do. Oh, there's a Mace. Wow, that's a really good answer here. And this means 2 damage for Marco. 1 from the Vault and 1 from the Serendip Efreet. And this is a problem, actually, for Marco. This Maze of If is going to tap a blue. Ancestral Recall, okay, that can help, whenever you're in a pickle. Ancestral Recall can definitely help, drawing 3 cards here from the Ancestral Recall. Can he find an answer to the Maze, or at least a land? Didn't play out a land yet. The problem is, of course, that City of Brass also hurts Marco, so he's got a lot of stuff on the board that actually hurts him. Now, what are we going to see? Ooh, just passing the turn. That's a very unfortunate Ancestral Recall for him. Can you imagine that after drawing 3 cards, going 3 cards deep, not even finding a land? That means 2 damage guaranteed for Marco next turn, dropping to 16 in that case. And Bus doesn't have to do anything for that. I believe Bus has 5 cards in hand. That's why the white die is there on the table. He's playing a Tolaria. And passing the turn. Yeah, Bus doesn't really need to do anything. 2 more damage here for Marco, dropping to 16. I mean, first point of business for him is lands. He just needs to find lands. That would really help. And unfortunately, I didn't have a deck list of Marco, so I don't know if he plays with Blood Moon. Because Blood Moon would be really good right now. It's going to take another damage, drop to 15. Okay, copying the Mana Vault here. And passing the turn. And this is just great for Bus. I mean, Bus is doing nothing and Marco's already lost a quarter of his life. Let's see if he can find a land. Is of course also playing with Serenips himself as well, but yeah. Maybe doesn't see the need right now to play a Serendip. He is going to tap 3. Are we going to see a Serendip Efreet? Or a Psionic Blast? It could also be an option. And if you have a Blast, I would actually maybe go for the life total of Marco. Bus playing a very direct damage aggressive deck. Oh, Stone Rain. Oh, that is painful. He is going to go for the City of Brass. And I do get it that he needed the moment to think about it, because it's quite nice to see Marco, having to deal that extra point of damage every time he uses that city, but I think it's a good decision. There we see Marco tapping for another Serendip. Oh, I mean, it's good. You can start dealing damage, but it also means another point of damage for Marco, of course, in the upkeep. And, of course, another damage from the Mana Vault. Wow, this is brutal. Let's first see what Boss can do here, dropping an island. I mean, he's still on 20. You could just take 3. Remember, Marco's taking 4 every turn. Is there really a need for Boss? I mean, if he has a Serendip, I would play it out now, because you can block Serendip on Serendip. Gonna tap 3. Yep, there we go. There's the Serendip Efreet. So we see the revised art on the side of Marco and the Arabian Nights art on the side of Boss. Look at that, Marco scooping, picking up the card, saying, you know what? This is not gonna work. I'm gonna go into my sideboard, hopefully draw into a lot of red elemental blasts and blue elemental blasts, and I'll try to win game number 2. Talking about that, we're going to let these players sideboard, and we will catch back up with them in game number 2. Game number 2, here we go, and Bus, of course, on the draw after winning that first game, so Marco on the plate. And starting strong here with a Soul Ring. This is a good start for him, so maybe we're going to see another quick Serendip Efreet from Marco. And then let's hope for Marco it's not going to run into another maze. Let's first see, of course, what Bus can do in his first turn. Has access to a couple of 1-drops. Going to start with Hammerheim into Goblin Balloon Brigade. There we go. So it's a 1/1 creature. Goblin for 1 red. And you can pay 1 red to give it flying until end of turn. And here we see a City of Brass by Marco. Tapping and, ooh, that's a Fireball. That's pretty aggressive here on the Goblin Balloon Brigade. Could have decided to also tap his city to deal an extra point of damage here to Bus, but decides not to. And let's see what Bus can do. First point of business, do you have a land drop? We saw, of course, Marco earlier really struggling to find lands, even after casting an Ancestral Recall. So Bus a little bit in the tank here, it seems. Is that a land? That's the question. It is. It's an island. An island. Tapping for a blue. Oh, Ancestral Recall. Red Elemental Blast. Wow, this is really important. This is an important moment, I feel, for Marco. Red Elemental and Elemental Blasting this. And I'm sure if you're Bus, you're really regretting this moment. And now Marco's taking his turn, playing out a Serendip Efreet, the 3/4 flyer again. But now there's no maze on the table, so that could do some work. And Bus, of course, also plays with Serendips, which is a pretty good blocker for the Serendip. Or does he have a better option? Maybe if he has another land, for example, a Fireball, he could kill the Serendip. Or, of course, a Psionic Blast. Is also playing with 4 Psionic Blasts in his deck. But that's instant speed, so could also choose to kind of wait with that. It looks like he is thinking about playing out something there, putting the Soul Ring there on the island. So, is it a Psionic Blast or a Serendip? That's the question. Oh, it's neither. It's a Recall. Okay, he's going to get back probably the Ancestral Recall. But I mean, that's going to cost him 2 cards. And you still have 1 card bonus, I guess. And you get rid of a card that's probably not as good as the Ancestral Recall. So there's a Lightning Bolt being tossed away there and immediately playing out the Ancestral Recall. No Red Elemental Blast this time by Marco. So 3 cards drawn here for Bus. Passing the turn back to Marco. Marco taking a damage here from his own Serendip, dropping to 17. Tapping. Okay, there's a Felwar Stone. There's the attack. So now Bus dropping here to 17. So both players, I believe, on 17 at the moment. Let's see what Bus can do. Gonna drop another Volcanic Island. So he's got lots of mana there. The question is, what can he do with it? Tapping 3 here, the Hammerheim and the Soul Ring. Okay, there's a Stone Rain. And, ooh, there's a mana drain though. He is taking a damage from his own city, dropping to 16, but that mana drain is pretty good. Are we going to see a counterspell on the counterspell? That's the question. And now Buzz having questions about the life total of Marco. Yeah, this is why I personally, don't really like it when you use 2 sets of dice. I get it that you want to track your opponent's life total, but it usually leads to confusion. And here we see a Psionic Blast on the Surrender Befreed. That does mean 2 more points of damage for Buzz, so he's going to drop to 15. I think it's better, for example, to then maybe use a pen and write the scores down. But anyway, Marco here finding... Oh, look at this! Casting Shivan Dragon! I won't say finding a second mountain. Casting Shivan, of course, he had still mana from that mana drain. Yeah, and this is a huge moment here. Shivan Dragon hitting the board, and I wonder if Buzz boarded in Control Magics. Passing the turn here. There's the attack with the Shivan. He can pump it up to 9 if he wants to. He's going to pump it up to 7. Kind of indicating that he's keeping counter magic open, right? With that untapped Flower Stone and that City of Brass. Only 8. And that's it. Oh, wow. Look at that Buzz dropping his hand there, showing that there are only lands in hand. And that means a victory for Marco. 1-1. The Shivan Dragon did it for Marco here. And that means we're going to go to an all-deciding game number 3. Game number 3, the big decider. Who's going to win their group stage match? Will it be Buzz or will it be Marco? Both players playing red and blue. And it's Buzz, of course, on the play here. Marco taking a mulligan, dropping to 6. But of course, he's on the draw. And then kind of taking a mulligan is still bad, but it doesn't feel as bad when you're on the draw. And here we see Buzz starting with a basic island. No flying man, passing the turn. And there's an island by Marco and a Soul Ring. Wow, into a Mana Vault. That's a quick start here by Marco. Island, Soul Ring, Mana Vault. Pretty impressive. Here we see a mountain by Buzz. Passing the turn to Marco. 6 cards in hand for Buzz and 5 cards in hand for Marco. Marco also passing a turn. Oh, not finding lands again. So, I mean, you're really lucky having your Soul Ring Mana Vault, but then you've got nothing else. There's a Psionic Blast, I believe, played on end step here. Both players playing pretty quick. Buzz here dropping to 16, and now Marco taking his turn. There's another island, so at least he can start playing counter magic now. He's on 4 cards in hand. Oh, look at this. Oh, it's going to be a burn game. It's going to be one of those games. Buzz also firing off a Psionic Blast, so both players now on 14. And I mean, if you looked at Buzz's list, I mean, he's very capable of just burning an opponent out. Playing a Mace of If here, which is, of course, a great weapon against the Surrender Befreeds. Marco going up to 5 cards in hand, hasn't found a red source yet. Let's look at that. An end step, Lightning Bolt, Blue Elemental Blast on the Lightning Bolt. So that's saving Marco from more damage. So both players still on 14. Buzz tapping 3. There's a Stone Rain. And there's another Blue Elemental Blast. So Marco kind of having a hand full of Blue Elemental Blasts. That's not too bad, you know. Counters land destruction, counters burn. Could be worse here for Marco. Both players still on 14. And look at that, Marco already passed the turn back here to Buzz. Buzz finding another Volcanic. Both players haven't played out a single creature yet. There's the pass. I wonder if maybe Buzz, boarded out some of those 1/1 creatures. Also, Marco just passing. There's a City of Brass. I mean, Buzz is at least finding lots of land. I mean, maybe he can just play a big X-Spell. I wonder if he boarded in those Fireballs. And Marco, I believe, is really looking for a red source. Yeah, and Buzz a little bit in the tank at the moment. Maybe he's got some options. Passing the turn, though, back to Marco. Marco finding a Strip Mine. I mean, that's good. The Strip can take care of the Mace. I mean, no need to do it right now, but... Okay, he is doing it right now. Gonna strip here the Mace. So very interesting game 3. A little bit like chess, right? Both players, of course, know that they're playing with counter magic. And here we see the Goblins of the Flark, the 1/1 Mountain Walker, the Goblin. And this is actually a pretty good card to play right now. And the reason for that is that even if Marco's counter magic, you don't really want to counter this 1/1 Goblin, but it could get really annoying. Okay, tapping 3, it seems. No, untapping again. For a moment there, I thought it would... He was going to cast, a Serendip Efreet, but changed his mind. Of course, I don't know if he's got Serendip in hand. Perhaps he also has a recall here. 7 passing their turn, keeping 7 cards in hand. There's the attack with the Goblin of the Flark. It's going to drop to 13. There's the Goblin Balloon Brigade. Yeah, and these 1/1s are quite annoying for Marco, right? Because you don't really want to waste your removal or counter magic on them, but still you have to do something against them, because now you're looking at 2 damage a turn on the board, and also knowing how much burn Boss has. You don't want to go lower than 10 against Boss's deck. So Marco tapping 3 here. And okay, there's a recall. So it wasn't a Surrender Befriend, it was a recall in hand. So it's going to pitch a card here. Going to pitch a Shatter. Going to get back up Blue Elemental Blast. And I wonder if he wants to try to use it against one of those 2 Goblins. Going to attack you for 2. And there we see the Blue Elemental Blast. Are we going to see a Red Elemental Blast here? Nope, we're not. And I mean, this is great for Bust, right? Because basically Marco wasted 2 cards to get rid of 1/1/1 Goblin. I mean, that's good news for Bust. Let's see if he can do something in the second main. So Bust still on 14, Marco on 12. Yeah, and I feel kind of bad for Marco, not finding any mountains. It's just very unlucky. And it looks like, look at that, just passing the turn. So that's good news for Marco. No more pressure from Boss. Can he find a mountain? That's a big question. I guess he can't because he passes the turn. Then on end step, we see the Psionic Blast. Oh, that is painful. Marco would drop here. Or are we going to see a counterspell? No, we're not. It's going to drop to 8. Ay. Then we're going to see here, of course, Boss untapping, upkeep, draw. He's on 12 now, of course, taking 2 damage himself as well from the Psionic Blast, attacking here for 1. There's another Blue Elemental Blast. So Marco is only drawing his Blue Elemental Blast. I mean, that's everything. That's all that he's finding. And here we see another Goblin Balloon Brigade by Boss. Oh, he's got the Goblin Grenade. Oh, man. Oh, Marco. I'm sure he's wishing that he still had that Blue Elemental Blast. Dropping to 3. He's in Lightning Bolt range. That is so risky against Boss. Also has 4 chains in his deck, by the way. I mean, he's as good as dead. He's playing one on Borrowed Time against the Burn deck. 3 is not enough. Let's see if he can finish. There's a Psionic Blast. Is this the end of the line for Marco? Are we going to see a counterspell? Nope, this is it. Marco losing here against all the burn. And I feel, Marco, you were just so unlucky. You start with a Soul Ring and a Manifold, and I really thought, you're just going to run away with this game. You're going to cast maybe a Mamoto Jin or a Shivan Dragon really early, but none of it happened. And look at the hand here. It's pure firepower in Marco's hand. Shivan Dragon, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Fireball, Control Magic. But hey, he didn't have access to red. And that's what ruined it here for Marco in game number 3. And of course, a big congratulations here to Bust, winning it here 2-1. And I've got good news for all the Bust fans out there because he won the group. He moved on to the quarterfinals. And talking about the quarterfinals, I will show a Bust's match in the quarterfinals in the next episode of Timmy Talks. So if you enjoy this Enemy Colors tournament, make sure to keep an eye on the channel because I've got matches for you all the way to the finals. And the next episode, like I said, will have Bust in it again. Then he's going to battle in the quarterfinals. Now, if you want to make sure you don't miss that episode, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell because then you're sure that you're not going to miss any matches. And before you go, please take a moment to check out the Timmy Talks Patreon page. That is patreon.com/TimmyTalks, because there you can find out how you can become a patron of the show and how you can also join into these tournaments if you want to, of course. So if you've got a moment, please check out patreon.com/TimmyTalks.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with Igitus figitus sumba kazee.